Welcome to the video. My name's Steven. As you can see there, I got Crunch Fitness in the background. I just had a crazy experience. So about 8 months ago, I switched gyms to a new gym on the other side of town, an Amp Fitness that opened up in my town. And it's closer to my house, so I've been going there. Whatever, it's cool. Today's Sunday. I've been a little bored today. I was on this side of town and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go to my old gym just for fun. And I've always talked about coming back and like being at this gym, right? Like going back to work out here. And I told myself that maybe that would make me have a better experience in the gym, right? So I came and checked it out for fun. Got the day pass, and as soon as I walked past the front counter, my body just started freaking out. Like, I don't know what it was. Well, I do know what it was. That's why I'm making this video. But in the moment, I didn't know what it was, and I just started like panicking internally. And all this like flood of memories and experiences just started popping into my head that my brain had tried to forget. And this is essentially what trauma is. I think people automatically assume that trauma is like your parents hit you, like you had this really crazy experience as a child, and then it shows up later in life. But that's not what trauma is. And if you watch this video until the end, I'm going to show you exactly how this trauma works and how it affects your day-to-day, and then how to get rid of it. Because if you're anything like me, I've done a lot of digging into myself. I know who I am. I'm very confident in who I am as a person, to the extent to where sometimes I might sound a little arrogant in my speech because I know who I am. And it's because I've dug up trauma, but I've looked for trauma in big situations. Like, for example, when I was younger, I ran my car into a tree and broke my hip. That's a traumatic experience, right? And so logically, I dug into that experience and figured out what happened, how that became a part of me, and how I allowed myself to be stuck as the guy with the hip injury. Because what happens is when you have a traumatic experience, or when there's trauma, things your brain tries to forget, your brain basically says, it takes a snapshot of who you were in that moment, and then it says, you are this person, and so you have to operate under this extent. Now, one thing that Carl Jung said, and I'm not saying this verbatim, but it was, until you like figure out the past, it will control you, and you will call it fate. And so what happens is we bury these thoughts, and then we believe that we are a certain way because of experiences that happened in our past. And so you can only operate to that level. And this is where you waste your time in your work day. You have to watch TV, you have to play video games, you have to go out drinking on the weekends, because you tell yourself, I am this kind of person, and because of traumatic experiences, because of things your brain tries to forget. And so whenever it's time to excel past that level, you're basically trying to poke a hole in a raft that you're sitting in, and the raft is your ego, and you are the person in the raft, and beneath the raft is chaos. And so whenever something happens, like you believe, okay, I am not a morning person, so you have to not be a morning person, because of whatever it is. Maybe it's trauma, maybe that's just a belief you have. You go to poke the raft, you have to get up early one day, and your brain goes, nuh-uh, we can't do that, this isn't a thing. And so then the rest of the day you're all moody and upset and butthurt because you had to get up early in the morning, because your brain doesn't work on that caliber, because your brain has always told you that you're not a morning person. And so that's how beliefs work, that's how trauma works, and trauma gets buried deep inside of you. Remember, snapshot of who you were, buried inside your psyche, and you can only operate until that level. Okay, so I walked into the gym, and I immediately started feeling just all these old feelings from back in the day, all these experiences that I'd completely forgotten about. Like, for example, even though they wouldn't really be traumatic, like I started remembering, I used to take my ex-girlfriend to this gym. So I started remembering some of the experiences that I had with her in this gym, or maybe like before we went to the gym together on particular days, things that happened before, things that happened after the gym that I had completely forgotten about and my brain had tried to forget about, but now I was remembering again. Or even like back in the day, I remember there was like a couple girls at that gym that I tried to have a conversation with that I botched it because I just wasn't good with girls at 19 years old. I wasn't very social naturally, so I like botched the delivery on trying to go talk to them, and then that came back into my head as well. And then even um, like just some of like the nights when I was younger, you know, driving or biking to the gym every day when I didn't have a car, and or like that time that I had asked my roommate to pick me up from the gym and he forgot and I had to walk home in the rain in the snow because my roommate forgot to pick me up, and so it's like I forgot about all that stuff. And so to some degree my brain, that there is some sort of trauma that is held with that because of the way that I reacted when I walked in, but also because I had tried to forget about those things. I had completely forgotten that that stuff had ever happened, and I had been reminded. And see, some of these traumatic experiences operate in a vacuum, or they can only be uncovered in a specific environment. They're still inside you, but until you go back into that environment and you go back into the trauma, you won't be able to uncover the true problem to the fullest. And so this is why it's important to find trauma and then figure out how to get rid of it. Because once you get rid of it, your beliefs change. You allow yourself to no longer be that person. That snapshot of who you were in the past is destroyed. And then you can become the future version of you, the one that's the great and mighty, whatever it is, whatever goals and dreams you have for your life, whatever it is you want to achieve, right? And so that is what our goal is today. So our goal is to find that trauma. So first of all, or how to treat that trauma. So I've shown you, how to find it, going back in old environments. And I actually have a video on my page about this that I made probably about 1.5 years ago. You can probably go find that somewhere. But the way to get rid of this trauma, to allow this trauma to leave, is to essentially treat it the same way you would treat a tenant at a residence that isn't paying. So for example, you own a home, that home is your mind, and the tenants have not paid their rent, and you need to kick the tenants out. All right? And so there is a way that you do this. The first thing you need to do is you need to allow yourself to accept the fact that these tenants gotta go. So what that looks like is what I've done so far today, and that is, okay, yeah, this is not gonna work. These guys cannot, this trauma can no longer affect me, and it has to go. I've identified, okay, this trauma has to leave. The next step is to get the court order to have these people kicked out. You can't just go kick out the people without a court order, right? Because then legally they can still stay there. So you can go kick them out, but then they're just going to come back, right? Because it doesn't matter. They need documentation that person needs to be kicked out. So what that looks like is accepting and identifying not only with yourself but with God what it is, and forgiving yourself and asking the Lord for forgiveness for whatever that is. And usually it's desires. So if you have like specific desires that have led you down a certain path that led to these traumatic experiences, those are things that you have to go to the Lord with and say, Lord, I no longer want to be this person, and I'm sorry for acting this way, right? But also, you have to look at it and say, this is not it. This is not the way I want to be. And because the trauma develops certain emotions and characteristics in who you are. And so you have to identify that stuff and go and say, okay, I'm tired of being anxious about these past mistakes I've had. I'm tired of being worried and doubtful and fearful all the time, and letting these things control my psyche. So getting that core order looks like getting the authority from God to say, hey, like, I understand the consequences of having these people here, of having these thoughts here. I need them gone. They've overstayed their welcome. You have to find out why it is so bad to keep anxiety, fear, and doubt, specifically around particular traumatic experiences and these beliefs that you hold. Why they are so bad and they have to go. That's the second step. So the first step is identifying it. The second step is digging into why they're there and why they need to go and accepting it. The third step is actually kicking them out, right? That's sitting with it and saying, you can no longer be a part of my life. You can't be here anymore. You can no longer affect me. What that looks like is putting yourself back into those experiences, whether that be going back to the location or playing particular music, to put you into that realm of where you were and really visualize who you were in that moment and tell yourself you're no longer that person. Because the thing is, I'm no longer that person that couldn't show up to the gym every single day because I got complacent in my last relationship. I'm no longer the person who gets scared to walk up to a girl and say hi and stutters his way through communication with a woman, right? I'm no longer that person. But my brain tries to tell me that I am, to some degree, right? The last step is to change the locks. So you have to, again, they can still try to get back in. You have to change the locks. How do you change the locks? You say, all right, I'm no longer this person. This is no longer me. Okay? So running through everything again. Figure it out. Find the trauma. Ask for forgiveness from God. And accept the trauma. Go and kick it out. Go back into that moment and say, this is no longer who I am. And fourth, change the locks. Act that way. Act like you are no longer that person. And live your life that way. And when you do this, you are no longer the person who operated the way in which you did when traumatic experiences occur. And you have a clearer head, and you're more likely to do the things that you need to do because you've battled with your issues and you're more convicted in who you are. I talk about congruency a lot. I've been talking about that a lot this year. Congruency. Being congruent in your thoughts, words, and actions. You cannot be congruent in your thoughts, words, and actions if you have not uncovered trauma in your life and taken care of it. It is your duty as a human being. God has put you here on this earth and has given you challenges to tackle. It is your duty to find that trauma and accept it. And if you have to cry, remember I talked about I don't know if I don't even think I mentioned it, but I saw this video recently of some deer getting attacked by, I think it was like a jaguar or something. And right as it was about to get killed, the deer or the jaguar fucked off. Or maybe it was a panther. I don't know. I can maybe find the clip and put it up. And what happened was the deer sat there for a second, and then it got up and started shaking, frantically, before it officially got up and walked away. And that was it, processing the trauma. You have to process this stuff. It's your duty to do this because you cannot be congruent in who you are as a person without processing old traumas. And so now I have the opportunity to become even more congruent because I know who I am. Now I'm like, oh my God, I just found more trauma. Let's fucking go. So now I can battle this and then be even more congruent in who I am. You see how awesome this is? How great this is? How much of an effect this has on your life? Because if you don't deal with it, your brain says, well, I'm always going to be this person. I'm always this person. And so I saw this particularly in myself, just as a quick testimonial to this. When I got out of my last relationship, I had a side of me for a couple weeks that I was like, I am not good enough to attract a high-value woman. I'm not good enough to attract anyone. And I remember there was saw this girl at my pool in my neighborhood, and I walked up to her and I was like, "Hey, I just wanted to say that I think you're really pretty, and I anyway, you have a good day." And I walked away because I hadn't fully processed the situation. I hadn't processed who I am, who I'm supposed to be in this world when it comes to situations like that. And so I had a bad experience. And I botched this girl, this potential conversation I could have had with this girl because I was scared. Well, I had to face that. I had to get in the fire on that. And I did. And I'll say this, my dating life is very, very successful. I'm very happy with my dating life now. Okay? I'd say I probably get like 5 to 7 phone numbers a week. I go on a new date at least once a month. There's some times where I've gone out on dates and hung out with women that I didn't particularly enjoy. And there's some times where I've gone out and I've hung out with women that I've had a very, very wonderful experience with. But I had to accept that I can attract a valuable woman into my life and go and dig into that breakup and say, okay, this is where I messed up. This is where the problems where I'm no longer this person anymore. I will not operate under this extent. And now I'm happier in that situation. And now I'm more congruent because my thoughts, words, and actions align. Because before my thoughts, words, and actions did not align, I walked up to that girl and my action was walk over. My thoughts were, holy shit, I'm fucking scared. I can't attract this woman. She's going to reject me. And my words reflected my thoughts. Even though I was trying to say something a certain way, like I was trying to say it in a way like, hey, like I'm attracted to you, like you're pretty or whatever, like what's your name? I didn't get there. I didn't even get there because my thoughts were so cloudy. So I had to deal with that trauma. So deal with trauma, bro, because it fucking changes your life, dude. I just made a video recently about how to get whatever you want. And I will say this, bro. I have consistently in the last like 2 or 3 months gotten whatever the fuck I wanted because I have been congruent in who I am. Because I know exactly who the fuck I am. And yeah, sometimes I've made mistakes and done stupid shit. I'm not saying I'm perfect. But for the most part, I have consistently gotten what I really, really wanted out of life because I have done this. Do you understand? This changes your fucking life when you do this shit. You can never get what you want. Never. If you don't accept your fucking trauma and learn from it. I've had some traumatic experiences where I had to accept it, realize that that's a part of me and who I am and I'm okay with it, and live on. All right? I'm grandiose, by the way. That's my seduction type. That's my like personality type. I'm grandiose. I go out of my fucking way to be the big man on campus. I could try to suppress that and say that that's wrong, or I could just say, you know what? That's just who I am as a person and I'm okay with that. All right? And so, yeah, sometimes I go out dressing a little bit more nice than I'm supposed to. And I talk a little bit too loud. And I make YouTube videos. And I want to grow a marketing agency to over $100,000 a year or $100,000 a month so I can fucking buy all my family G-Wagons and fucking get a yacht. And I can make a bunch of people's lives, change people's lives. My clients' lives. I'm grandiose in that way. If you're watching my channel, there's a good chance you're an entrepreneur. You want to do something good with your life. If you're watching this late into the video, there's a good chance you want to do something good with your life. You're probably the same way. So accept it, bro. But figure out the traumatic experiences that prevent you from being a grandiose person. Or whatever it is. Like, there's all sorts of different personality types and ways that people act. Like, figure out your thing, bro. Figure out your problems and face them. And I just found more problems by walking into my gym. Because the thing is, trauma gets uncovered in environments and experiences. And so you need to look for those. I know this video is running a little long. I've been ranting a bit, but one last thing, bro. Sometimes you just need to get the fuck away from the entire area. I live on the opposite side of town from where I used to, but even still, bro, there's so much trauma everywhere that I consistently uncover regularly that, on top of removing the version of myself that believes that I am this way, or that I, because of the traumatic experiences, I just need to get the fuck out of here. Like, I live in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. I'm about to move up to Nashville here next year because I I can't live here anymore because there's so much trauma here. Again, it's not like every fucking street corner I had someone try to rob me, but my brain has tried to hide so many memories that it's like every time I leave my house, memories upon memories just pop up into my head of things that have happened and things that have occurred that I just don't need to be around. I just don't need to be around that stuff. I need to make new memories. I need to live a new life. And so I'm hoping that this video helped you out. If you have any like trauma in your life, that's how you figure it out. And the thing is, it's going to be hard because the current you is going to tell you that your trauma, the current version of you is going to get attached. Your ego is going to get attached to your traumas and try not to let go of them. So it's going to be hard. Like, you might cry, and that's okay. But you know what else is hard, bro? Living a life where you don't uncover your traumas, you don't uncover your pain, and you live exactly the same for the rest of your life. And if you're in a position where you work some 9-to-5 job that you fucking hate, or you're in school because your parents are forcing you to go to school, or you know, you're in a shitty relationship, whatever that looks like, you have to like understand that's going to be the rest of your life unless you fix something. And the easiest way to find a cure to that is to solve your traumas, be congruent, and then take action and change your life for the better. And you can only take action when that trauma has been eradicated. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, like, subscribe. 2 years into the channel, ladies and gentlemen. Just past the 2-year mark. And have a beautiful day. Have a good November.